It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to my review of the Super Minipla Hyper Agent Gridman, Dyna Dragon, and Gridman Sigma set. Now, this was released in February of 2019 as exclusive to Premium Bandai in Japan. It originally cost 6,000 yen, or there was a version that just included Dyna Dragon without Gridman Sigma, which has a box that looks like this, and that was only 4,500 yen. Though, honestly, for me, why wouldn't I not get Gridman Sigma? It's only a little bit more, and I get a whole other figure. And there is some advantages to that. Now, this was a Premium Bandai release, so it came in one box as opposed to the split boxes like Thunder Gridman. And if you haven't checked out that review of Thunder Gridman, go take a look. You're looking at part 2 of this series, and you haven't seen part 1 yet. So go back and check it out. Hit the subscribe button while you're there so you get to see more videos on this channel. Also, the box is nice. It's pretty thick. It was a lot of runners, but essentially this does contain everything you need for Dyna Dragon, which also means you got stuff for King Gridman, and then you also get Gridman Sigma, who we will talk about afterwards. Because we're starting with Dyna Dragon. He is the main focus here, and he is the most exciting. So let's take a look. So first things first, we have the Dyna Fighter. This was the first component of Dyna Dragon to debut in Gridman. It debuted alongside the rest of Dyna Dragon in its Drago form in Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad in episode 2, despite Dyna Dragon not appearing until episode 22 of Gridman. It's just how adaptations go. But this is the Dragonic Cannon's Dyna Fighter mode. It's pretty cool. It's a nice little ship. It's nothing too complicated. In fact, it is pretty much just the Dragonic Cannon with wings, and it does look nice overall. The other nice part is how few stickers there are. There are stickers for the dragon eyes here on either side, these yellow stripes, these red stripes, and these gray parts on both sides. Other than that, it is either a painted part or a plastic color part, which is pretty impressive. Now, of course, this is an assist weapon for Gridman, so folding it up, you bring the wings up like this, you bring these wings forward like that, very carefully so you don't break anything. Bring this handle down, and boom, there's the Dragonic Cannon. And then, of course, it does open up as well for the mouth. The mouth opens there. It is supposed to just stay like that. You're not supposed to open the mouth part. Stays like that. You can raise the little thing for some flair, and now you've got it in cannon mode. Of course, this can be used with the Gridman from Thunder Gridman. So here's the Dragonic Cannon held by Gridman, and surprisingly, you don't actually have to do a stand. If you can pose him correctly, can be tricky because that cannon is heavy, Gridman can stand on his own while holding the Dragonic Cannon. And that's pretty impressive. I love the design of this thing. It's supposed to be like a Chinese shoulder-mounted bazooka thing, and it just looks so cool, and I really do appreciate the way it looks. But let's get on to some bigger things with the King Jet. Now, the King Jet is the impressive body of Dyna Dragon, and I love the way this looks. While it is one of those very blocky jets that we've come to see, like with Thunder Jet, it's actually pretty cool. I like the wing designs. The color contrasts are really nice. I love a lot of the details, especially because all this gold you're seeing is painted onto the parts, and all the blue and such is stickers. But it turned out really nice overall. While it is kind of a very much, this is going to become something else from the bottom, I think this actually works pretty well as a jet design from the top. And that is pretty cool. Now, much like in the series, you can combine the Dyna Fighter with the King Jet to make Dragon Fortress. And the way you do this is you basically just keep this as is, fold those up, and then you have to pull this center orange piece out. And I actually have trouble getting this out because it's got like a couple little tabs, but that socket in there is really tight. And I don't want to do this on camera because it's clear plastic. I don't want to break it. I'll do this off camera, and then we'll combine them up. Okay, so now that we got this peg hole exposed, since we've got the orange piece out, bring it around, there is the peg that it attaches to, and it just goes right in there. And you just got to kind of line it up by, just kind of eyeball it. Careful not to knock off any other parts while you're doing this. It'll inevitably happen when you're doing it on camera. And then, yeah, basically from the top, you can't really tell. This is the Dragon Fortress, but the Dragon Fortress is basically the King Jet with this little piece on the bottom. It's always funny when it combines in the show. It's like, oh, you know, these two go together, now it's Dragon Fortress, and it's like, it looks different. It's just simply this part in the back here is all that's different. But there you go, that's Dragon Fortress. Now, of course, Dragon Fortress becomes Dyna Dragon. Now, keep in mind, while I do these transformations, there's some additional parts that to be swapped in. Because they didn't come with a specific box, I'm not going to mention them until we need to use them. But there are, you know, it's not a perfect transform thing, but neither was Thunder Gridman. So with Dyna Fortress here, we're going to take it like this. We're going to remove these top panels just because that is the simplest way to do it. We're going to wrist this down, pull this open, bring the head forward. The head's kind of, you know, locked in there, but you want to get this panel back here up, which can be kind of tricky while you still have the thing attached. I'm leaving Dragonic Cannon attached back there, but we're going to get this up like that. So we'll bring the head back like this, bring these up like that. We're going to take the legs. The legs are just going to swing forward and down like so. Rotate them down, bring this forward, line up the feet so they're flat. So you got kind of chicken walk mode there going on. This part will all come around the top, so make sure that's lifted so that way it comes down. This will happen from time to time. I've noticed this since I've gotten the kit. These side panels don't really stay on too well, which is, you know, kind of a problem because it's kind of annoying. At the same time, it's a good safety feature, so nothing breaks. Bring that down. That'll click in down here at the bottom, like that. And then now we've got this going on, so we can tilt the head so we get an idea of where we're at with the transformation. This piece back here, that helmet just kind of rests back there. I don't really know what else to say. Then the slightly complicated part. So with these pods, which we removed from here, they were on the upper set of pegs. You want to put them to the lower one, so they're raised up higher. Then this is where the parts forming part comes in. You got to pull this down like this. And while you could have his arms be that tiny, you can actually just come in here. I'll remove one so we can see. Slide it out like this. And then you put in one of these pieces that's included. That goes in. This comes up. And then now his arms are a bit longer and he's got points of articulation to work with. And yeah, it really is better to just do that with the arm pods detached as opposed to the when they're, you could do it while they're on there, but it's kind of a pain in the butt, so let's just do it detached. So we'll get that out, we'll put this on, we'll put it on here, and then we'll open up the claw, which is nice and neat, and there we go. There is Dyna Dragon. Oh, and where's the little horn? Dyna Dragon. In traditional Soundout transformation fashion, I forgot that you also need to come around back and pull the tail out. So it's in multiple pieces, and you can do it without removing the Dragonic Cannon, I promise. And look, there it is. It does take some maneuvering, but it's got a little tail. Now, there's Dyna Dragon. So here we have Dyna Dragon, also known as Drago for you Team Samurai fans. This guy is pretty cool. I love the design. While he is kind of a very chunky, sort of chicken-looking dragon, he is Dyna Dragon, even though he is based on a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Sometimes it's late in the day when I film these. The overall shape is definitely Tyrannosaurus Rex-like, because he's got, you know, all the way down to the tail, but it's got the Dragonic Cannon sort of dragon head, and that's why it's Dyna Dragon and not like Dragon. So it kind of works. I mean, there's wings here too. So it is kind of a mixture between like a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a dragon. We'll see something similar in the future when the Shogoken modeling project Dyna Xenon comes out. And Dyna Rex is literally like a T-Rex that also has dragon wings. But yeah, I mean, it looks really nice. Like I had mentioned, there's a lot of stickers, but it's not too noticeable. Like the stuff that is stickers is stuff that you would kind of expect to be stickers, like these orange bits. And, you know, it works out. Articulation-wise, he does have some. No left and right in the head. It can move up and down a little bit. It's really stiff. You can open and close the mouth. The arms pretty much are ball jointed there, and that's pretty much what you're going to get. Move it too much, you'll pop off those pieces here. Keep wanting to call them shoulder pads because they're technically shoulders, but they're also shoulder pads. The claws do open and close, so you have some adjustment there. The hips are interesting because they move out, they rotate. If you rotate them too much, they will just pop off because they are a transformation item. And then you can move the legs a little bit here and there, and then the ankles that move back and forth. But much like God Xenon, while you can sort of pose this guy, it's mostly going to be kind of in the same stock position you started in. And that works, honestly, because that's pretty much all Dyna Dragon did. So we did a lot of size comparisons, so hopefully you all know about the size of Gridman. He is about 4.5 inches tall. I did a bunch of comparisons in that previous video, and you can see him next to God Xenon here from that previous video, with, of course, Dyna Dragon. And Dyna Dragon, I think, is a little bit closer in size to what we saw in the series than God Xenon was, and that was just by the nature of how they all combine. But honestly, they look all good together. This is the classic Gridman original toy lineup, and what we saw in the original series, and it's really cool to have all three together. Now, of course, just like with God Xenon, Dyna Dragon's parts can combine with Gridman to make a new Gridman combination. So to get Gridman prepped, it's the same as with Thunder Gridman. Remove the hands and also put in those shoulder fillers. In fact, I didn't realize this. These shoulder fillers are specifically called out in the instructions for King Gridman as opposed to Thunder Gridman, so they may have been designed for his combination with Dyna Dragon this entire time, and that's why they probably didn't fit as well with Thunder Gridman. Okay, so the King Jet is called the King Jet because it helps form King Gridman. In fact, this whole thing becomes King Gridman with Gridman, and you don't actually have to worry about Dragonic Cannon. More on that in a bit. So first things first, we're going to get the helmet out of here. It does recommend removing the helmet, so we're going to get it popped out. Just simple as that. We're going to remove both of the shoulder pods, and we're also going to remove both of the legs. Now, interestingly, you have to pull the whole peg system out. It's a lot easier to get it without the peg, but you need the whole peg system for whatever reason. And you get all that there, so you leave with all these pieces that we have to figure out how they go together. So with the legs, we're going to remove the pegs, again, following instructions to make sure I do this properly. You want to get all this here. This part will come off, and then this part will come out. And in that case, it was conveniently flying all over the place. Basically, we're just kind of sort of stripping the contents of the inside of these legs, because while the original toy worked a little different, these are getting completely replaced for our purposes here. When it comes to these pieces, these are going to become the arms and the shoulders, so you want to pull these out for the arms, like that. These will flip around sort of like this. I say sort of because that's is. And we're going to plug the fists on, so we got the fists are separate pieces, just like what we saw with Thunder Gridman. You know what? I like that. I think with the Super Minipla going for the more streamlined design, that works out pretty good. So now we got our two hands there, and then with the shoulder pads, we're going to bring in these extra little thingamadoos that they have us build, and then these peg on if I'm doing them correctly, which I feel like I'm not. I feel like this is backwards. These are things that are placing things so that we can connect things to things. Yeah, these are just like, I call these just thingamadoos, because what else are you supposed to call them? It's just a bunch of parts that go together, and now we got that going on. Now for the rest of the jet, we're going to remove this gray piece in here. This was the connector for the Dragonic Cannon. In fact, I hope I can get, there we go. That's just going to be put off to the side. We're going to fold the wings down like this, and then double them over like this. Time to get Gridman in here and put these on him. So to do the legs, we do need all this, but we need some stuff to go in first, namely these gray pieces. So the little foot pegs on the front of his feet go in there, and then on the back, you want to line up the little tab to the slot and put it on. So now he's got like cement boot things. So, you know, there's that. Yeah, we just do this on both sides. Essentially, this is kind of just replacing a lot of other components that the deluxe version would have done better at that larger size. With this being smaller, I don't mind some swap out for some simplicity. And basically these will go straight on top of them. If you can get it lined up, push it in, and it goes all the way forward, and then you plug a foot onto the bottom. And you know what? That actually works pretty good. It's not as satisfying as God Tank's leg combination, where you can just fold it all together. And then sometimes that'll happen. The nature of these parts, sometimes they will separate. And it did tear the sticker on mine, but watch this. This is a neat little magic trick here. Boom. You can't even tell when I push it down in the right direction. There we go. Yeah, see, all fixed. But yeah, I mean, it works for the small size, but there we go. That is his legs. Next, we're gonna do the rest of the jet part. This is gonna go down, just like similar to what we saw with Gridman. It's gonna come around, and it's gonna plug straight down. What's also interesting is we have an alternate piece that's not required for transformation. We'll do that in a bit. We want to get all this plugged in like that. So you see you got Gridman, he's barely poking up out of his chest there. Of course, the hands just go on like this and like this, just to plug them on. And hopefully I find the wrist bag in there. There we go. So we got that going on, and then now we come down to the shoulders. So we'll just, these little pieces move. I forget to mention that. These just plug on to the little slots right there. And then lastly, we got to do the helmet, which I'm going to make sure is done right the first time. Okay, I think I got it. Had trouble with Gridman's helmet. Just going to pop this in the back and then pop it down in the front, and it's gonna line up, right? It's gonna line up because I'm doing this on camera. All right, there we go. And then we're gonna raise the little horn here like that. Did that go too far? There we go. And there is King Gridman. First things first, elephant in the room. If you transform it normally, his hips ain't going anywhere. This entire basic waist section is going to be locked in. However, you can remove 3 pieces and they give you an alternate skirt that is much better. We should do this during the transformation, but the instructions did show doing it the more perfect transformation way. So we pull this out and then remove these side pieces, which are pegged in double for stability, which is fantastic. Anyways, let's get all this out here. And you know what? We're just going to leave Gridman's head off because this helmet thing is annoying to deal with on camera. Okay, so then what we're going to do is, much like with Gridman's skirt, we're going to peg this piece on the back, and then we'll peg this other piece on the front. And this allows the side skirts, it not only looks better because less bulky, but the side skirts now move, so you can actually have hip movement. So here we have King Gridman. I really love this one. Personally speaking, as much as I do like Gridman, King Gridman to me is the better design. It may be because it's combining 1 vehicle and not 3 with Gridman, and overall the fact that the colors are, essentially Gridman's colors. It's red, black, and silver. I love the consistency of look here. I love the chunkiness. The backpack's a lot more concise. I really, really like this a whole lot. Like, just the overall design really comes together for me in a lot of cool ways. And yeah, I kind of like it more than Gridman, which is also why it sucked that Dyna Dragon was premium Bandai exclusive, because that did make him harder to get. Luckily, I was able to get one for a good price, but that's not always the case. In terms of articulation, you're probably wondering, head can turn left and right. It can turn better when you don't have Gridman's head inside. The shoulder pads move up, they move left and right. The shoulders still work. They do come out easier if you use the shoulder spacers, which, by the way, I definitely think the shoulder spacers were designed for Dyna Dragon, because if his arms are in farther, actually, let's find out. We are people of science here. We will do the experiments. If you put the arms in like this, yeah, see the arms actually bash into the side skirt if you don't have those extenders. So I don't think the extenders are really meant for Gridman, but were instead meant for Dyna Dragon. And that's kind of interesting, because those parts came with Gridman on his own instead of coming with the Dyna Dragon set. But that was probably easier that way. But yeah, I mean, there's that. So we got the arm movement, which is pretty much what you'd expect, outside of me detaching things unexpectedly. These things are not fun to pose on camera, all right? Then we got the waist joint, so the torso joint works, and because we detach that, the torso joint works. And because we're on the detached skirt, you can also move the hips out. They can move forward, not so much back. Thigh swivel still works. You got the double, not the double, but the single knee, which actually goes pretty far, all things considered, without running into stuff. And then you got your ankles, which are actually pretty fantastic because you have posing on the front and the back, as well as in the middle. So plenty of posing options. You can get this guy posed pretty good. It does take some finagling. Like I had mentioned, these are model kits, and doing this on camera has been an absolute nightmare. But I'm trying to demonstrate how you can do it. If you take your time, it'll go much better than if you're trying to do it quick in a video. Alright, so anyways, he can pose good, that's the point. But there is one other thing that you're probably wondering about, which is, what happened to the Dragonic Cannon? Behold, a formation not seen in the series. King Gridman wielding the Dragonic Cannon, which it does quite well, and even better than Gridman, because big old feet, big old armor. This looks amazing. Why did they never use this in the show? I'm not exactly sure, but from what I understand, time ran out or something. The anime short Studio Trigger did, The Boys That Invent Great Hero, which if you've never seen it, just look up Gridman Boys Invent Great Hero on YouTube. It's fantastic. It pretty much is just them animating a lot of the moments from the show. But in the final battle, they changed it so that King Gridman wielded the Dragonic Cannon against Condigifer. And honestly, it looks so cool in that animation, and I'm glad that the Super Minipla gave it the shoulder range to make sure it can do this. Now, for me, I found that I had to take the shoulder pad off, put the arm in the direction I wanted it, and put it all back, which is why I didn't do it on camera. But look at that, you can have him hold the Dragonic Cannon, and it looks amazing. It really does. And yeah, I mean, overall, King Gridman slash Dragonic Cannon slash, everything here, fantastic, fantastic stuff. But it doesn't end there, because we have another Gridman to look at. Behold, Full Power Gridman, not to be confused with the SSSS anime version of the same name. This is a real thing, I didn't make it up. It was in the photo novel that also featured Gridman Sigma and King Gridman holding the Dragonic Cannon. It is Dragonic Cannon, it is King Jet, it is Thunder Gridman holding that and riding that like a surfboard. It's weird. I love it. It's weird. I'm never displaying it like this because I'm a little concerned for King Jet having that much weight on him. But this is totally a real combination in a photo novel. So even the most hardcore Gridman fan is probably wondering, who is Gridman Sigma, and why does he have a figure? I've never heard of a Gridman Sigma. Well, Gridman Sigma here is the fusion of multiple concept ideas that never came to be. There was a villain character named Khan Knight that would have been Takeshi Todo turned into an evil sort of knight character for Condigifer, and that ultimately didn't come to be in the third arc of the show. That never happened due to the cancellation. Later on, the plan was for him to become heroic and become a character named Grid Knight, with Grid Knight being a concept brought into the SSSS anime universe. Now, Gridman Sigma here was actually sort of not necessarily the exact character planned for that third arc, nor is he exactly a possible sequel character, as there was the idea of a Gridman F or Gridman Fighter. Gridman Sigma, as we see him here, was part of a photo novel that ultimately was produced, and he did have a costume, a modified version of Gridman, and was described as being Gridman's younger brother, who would also use Takeshi Todo as the host, and therefore Gridman Sigma. The idea behind it was essentially so that they could have this photo novel have fight scenes with Thunder Gridman and King Gridman fighting side by side, which with the Super Minipla release means that is also possible. So yeah, here is Gridman Sigma. Now this is not necessarily a necessity for some collectors, like there was an option you could get it without Gridman Sigma, but I think this is a really cool piece of interesting trivia, as well as being a cool looking figure. He is mostly the same body as Gridman, having different wrists basically to alternate and put the acceptor on this side as opposed to this side. And yeah, other than that, he's mostly the same Gridman body minus the head. In fact, when you go to transform him to combine him, you have to remove these little wing things because they stick up too much. But yeah, I mean, in terms of an overall design, he looks like he's related to Gridman, but isn't the same, and I like that. I like that he's primarily blue. I like blue and I like silver, so he's right up my alley. Now, whether or not I think Takeshi Todo should have been a hero, that character bothers me on many levels, and for those that have seen Gridman, you know why. But overall, I do like Gridman Sigma quite a bit. And especially when you pair him with his older brother, they do look quite nice and quite different despite sharing a lot of parts. I do want to note, there is supposed to be red in these shoulders, same with Gridman and Gridman Sigma. These shoulders here should be red on the inside here, and there's no stickers provided, and there's no paint detail for that. I wonder if that's because of the nature of this is all going to be hidden under armor, most likely for most collectors. But that is a detail they did miss that I was kind of, I didn't notice it at first, but I did notice it between videos. But honestly, it's really cool having Gridman Sigma to go with Gridman, especially because the main purpose of having Gridman Sigma is to have King Gridman and Thunder Gridman next to each other. But before then, he does come with the same accessories as Gridman minus the weapons, including some hands that allow him to do the Sigma strike attack seen in the photo novel, as well as the iconic pose that we see him in, the image that floats around the most. This was kind of supposed to be Gridman Sigma's signature pose. But there's one other. You can have Gridman and Gridman Sigma do the double grid beam together. And this is actually just really cool. Overall, Gridman Sigma was not a necessity, but I'm glad he was included, because outside of that photo novel and the brief appearance in the Boys Invent Great Hero anime short, telling you it's great, this guy just doesn't get that much attention because of the nature of his existence, so it's nice to see him here. But of course, he was created to have Thunder Gridman and King Gridman side by side, so let's form King Gridman Sigma. Prepping Gridman Sigma, much like Gridman, you remove the hands, you pop the shoulders, and you put the little spacers in. Because for King Gridman stuff, you definitely need those spacers. Also, you do have to remove the little wings on the sides of his head. They really just sit off to the side because that way his head is small enough to fit in the helmet. I'm not going to bother going over the transformation to King Jet again because it's the same thing. We're just going to plug all this on to Gridman Sigma and pretend like it's brand spanking new, because it kind of is. I mean, the colors will slightly change in the final combo, even though most of this is getting covered up by armor. That's the nature of the biz, right? But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much transforming King Gridman. King Gridman Sigma is pretty much no different, minus some colors, right? So we just gotta keep going, and there's the legs. This time we'll do the alternate skirt from the front, from the start, whatever words I'm trying to use. Plug that on, plug it on, connect away. It works out pretty good when it does. Adding in the good old jet backpack thing, like this. Boom, boom. That didn't go with it. So now we're all there, boom, ready to go. Then we got arm, which goes on, arm on, and it fell off. That happens. It always happens when I put the camera on. And then shoulder pad, and then shoulder pad. Gridman and Gridman Sigma always look so tiny in this thing. And we're gonna put the helmet on and hope it actually, can it just go on? Oh yeah, he's got a little bit less mass because he's missing the wing things. It went straight on the first time. So here's King Gridman Sigma, pretty much the same as regular King Gridman, except you don't see as much red. It's got some blue, which actually works pretty well with the blue that's already on the chest. It actually contrasts a lot better than I thought it would. But there we go, King Gridman Sigma. But of course, the main reason why we want King Gridman Sigma is so he can be next to Thunder Gridman. And there it is, what we were looking for this whole time. Thunder Gridman and King Gridman side by side with, King Gridman Sigma. And honestly, this is really cool. In terms of, if you had the original toys or you have some of the other versions, there may not be a Gridman Sigma, so you couldn't have them side by side without buying a duplicate Gridman. And I like this idea that Gridman and his brother can use the same assist weapons and have them work side by side like this. It's really cool. And in fact, I actually really like the blue. I think the blue is a nice contrast with King Gridman's otherwise colored parts, and this is just fantastic. These two look amazing together. And honestly, that's what I was looking for, and that's what I got. And here's a quick size comparison with an SH figure art for King Gridman. As you can see, Zet Original here is a good example of size. So yeah, it's what I was looking for. These Super Minipla kits are literally the perfect scale for me. So overall, I think the Super Minipla Dyna Dragon and Gridman Sigma set is actually fantastic. Despite being a premium Bandai exclusive, you really can't go wrong with this set, even over the original Thunder Gridman. And in fact, if you get the Gridman Sigma version, you don't need Thunder Gridman. You got a complete package in one, and that's pretty dang awesome. So if you're looking for it, I wish you the best of luck on the aftermarket. As I said, it was premium Bandai exclusive, so it was a little bit harder to obtain, but I did get mine for the exact P Bandai price of 6,000 yen. So keep an eye out. The opportunity may strike you, and I definitely think it's worth it. And stay tuned, because this is not going to be the last Gridman Super Minipla review. There's one more coming up with the full power Gridman from SSSS.Gridman coming in the very near future, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when that goes up. Hit a like if you enjoyed this video, and leave a comment down below and tell me what your favorite Gridman combination is from the original Gridman series. Mine, King Gridman with the Dragonic Cannon. That is the coolest thing to me. Be sure to check out Hero Club at hero-club.com for tokusatsu news and more. My awesome graphic designer on Twitter at darkclaw643. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.